for tonight. And so we're going to do a little update on this whole President Trump pardoning the cocaine drug lord, Juan Orlando Hernandez, and why that may be playing a part in a private cyber city being built in Honduras, and who's all involved with that. Yeah, it just continues to go deeper. So we did a major deep dive on this whole drug situation regarding the Juan Hernandez dude, the ex-president of Honduras. And, it's showing the hypocrisy of what's going on, of not only of Trump and Hegseth, wanting to blow boats out of the water, but then it also has to do with the fact that he's pardoning an actual convicted drug lord and all of this type of stuff. So it goes to show how hypocritical it is. But then we also know that the U.S. government, the CIA, and so on and so forth, for decades upon decades, they've been involved with the global drug trade. And we know the CIA is the biggest drug smugglers in the world. And so we covered all that type of stuff. And we uncovered a few different things regarding Hernandez, with his brother being involved with it as well. And then the new dude who may take over or win presidency. I think that's going on right now. They're counting the votes over there in Honduras, where Trump is promoting this dude, Tito Asfura, who's connected to the same national party that Juan Hernandez is connected to, and it just goes deep. Make sure you guys go check that out if you haven't. We just talked about that. But we came across this, and this should be fun. It says the for-profit city that might come crashing down, the dream of Prospera, founded by a U.S. corporation off the coast of Honduras, was to escape government control. The Honduras government wants it gone. And so we're going to take a look and see what's going on with this. So this is from August of 2024. So this is something that's been going on for a little while. But it basically talks about taking the elevator to the 14th floor of what is now the tallest building on the Honduran island of Rotan, nearly twice what the local building code allows. When construction is complete, Duna residences will house 82 units overlooking a jungle of palm trees and the Caribbean Sea, and several other new buildings that the Honduran government considers illegal. If Prospera was a normal town, Colindres, who's kind of the president of it, would be considered its mayor. His title here is Technical Secretary. As we look out over a clearing in the trees in February, he pointed to a small office complex where he works collecting taxes and managing public finances for the city's 2,000 or so physical residents and e-residents, many of whom have paid a fee for the option of living in Prospera or remotely incorporating a business there. Nearby is a manufacturing plant that is stated to build modular houses along the coast designed by Zaha Hadid Architects. About a mile in the other direction are some of the city's businesses: a Bitcoin cafe, an education center, a genetics clinic, a scuba shop, a delivery service for food and medical supplies. Will deploy its drones from this rooftop. So it's kind of creating, we've talked about the smart cities and everything like that. They're trying to build this digital robotic utopia that's a private for-profit city for businesses and elites to live there. Getting some interesting stuff. Hang with me. It says there's not much else to see yet, but the Delaware-based company has founded this experimental town in 2017 and has raised $120 million in investments, including from venture capital funds backed by the Silicon Valley billionaires Peter Thiel, Sam Altman, and Marc Andreessen. Oh, those names should sound familiar for those around the channel. We're now starting to get a little bit more understanding of why Orlando Hernandez there was pardoned. So this cyber city that they're trying to build in Honduras is being funded by Peter Thiel, Sam Altman, and Marc Andreessen. Let's keep going. And it's being funded by them to transform the territory, about twice the size of Monaco, into the most developed startup city in the world. Built in a semi-autonomous jurisdiction known as a ZED, or a Spanish acronym for Zone for Employment and Economic Development, Prospera is a private for-profit city with its own government that courts foreign investors through low taxes and light regulation. Businesses can choose a regulatory framework from a menu of 36 countries or customize their own. It says Prospera has become particularly well known for the zone's experimental medical facilities, which run clinical trials unburdened by the FDA standards. This is where we start getting some interesting things, because it's these types of zones and these types of cities that allow them to participate in some off-the-cuff technology and biomedical stuff. It says Patry Friedman, grandson of the economist Milton Friedman, and the founder of a startup city fund that invests in Prospera, had a chip with his Tesla key implanted into his hand. On a previous trip, he brushed his teeth with genetically modified bacteria purported to prevent cavities. Another time, he was injected with a protein booster intended to make him stronger and faster, as he put it at a conference in Rotan that weekend. So within this compound, they are doing medical testing for things like implants, digital and chip implants. Talked about modified bacteria. They're also talking about things like protein injections in order to start speeding things up. We know this is something that a lot of these elites, including people like Peter Thiel and Sam Altman, they've been investing in these very companies that all has to do with things like de-aging, super soldier type stuff, health boosts with genetically modified things, and they've been investing in a whole bunch of different companies that are trying to do this. But the problem is most of those companies are in areas where there's government oversight, and they have to have somewhat of a restraint on what they're doing. Obviously, they don't follow it to the letter, but there has to be somewhat of a restraint. But if you're doing it in a city like this, it's a buy-in, paid-for city, and so they're just going to go ahead and allow you to do it as long as money is flowing in. Goes on to say each zone offers a degree of escape from government oversight and taxation. And it says today, escalating clashes between the government and big tech, like the SEC's regulatory war on crypto or the Federal Aviation Administration's repeated investigations into SpaceX, have spurred some Silicon Valley entrepreneurs to seek increasingly splintered off hubs of sovereignty. These are probably the places that they're going to try to escape to when things start going down. It says Prospera's original investment plan projected that by 2030, there's everybody's favorite number again, the city would be home to 38,000 residents, and that foreign direct investment in the country would top 500 million by next year. It says there are about 36 charter cities currently operating in the world, according to an estimate from Adrianople Group, an advisory firm that concentrates on special economic zones. Several others under development include the East Solano Plan, run by a real estate corporation that has spent the last 7 years buying up $900 million of ranch land in the Bay Area to build a privatized alternative to San Francisco. We've talked about this venture that they're trying to build over there in that region. We talked about it last year, I think we did. It's meeting a lot of issues. It's still going forward, but there's a lot of issues popping up, both legal and technical. Then there's Praxis, a forthcoming crypto state on the Mediterranean, and the Free Republic of Liberland, a 3 square mile stretch of unclaimed floodplain between Serbia and Croatia. Many of the same ideological aligned names, Balaje Srinivsan, Peter Thiel, Marc Andreessen, and Friedman, recur as financial backers. So not only are these dudes going for the Prospera city in Honduras, but they're also funding these other ones as well. They're trying to build their own privatized cities that operate in their own government. Interesting. Says the concept might have stayed on the fringes of libertarian and neo-reactionary forums had Paul Romer, who would go on to be the chief economic of the World Bank and win the Nobel Prize, not made charter cities the subject of an influential 2009 TED Talk. Romer argued that charter cities would give developing countries a chance to prosper by ceding uninhabited territory to wealthier nations to develop. This ruling country would act as a guarantor to the host country and write its own laws and regulations, which would attract private companies to invest and build the cities. So their whole idea is if you allow us to go in, these rich elite billionaires to go in to a poverty-stricken country, if you allow us to go in there and build our own private city, that's our own utopia. You guys can't come in, obviously. But if you allow us to do this, we will then start financially investing into your country. Do you honestly think that that's going to benefit these countries? I don't. Because when you start doing that, you're looking at these people that are going to take advantage of the poverty-stricken country, and they're not going to care about making their lives any better. But that's the pitch that they give people. Now, here's where we start to see the connection of the pardoned drug lord. This is President Lobo's chief of staff, the Harvard-educated lawyer, Octavio Sanchez, saw Romer's TED Talk and thought it was just what Honduras needed to achieve economic prosperity. Sanchez arranged a meeting in Miami among Romer, Lobo, and the president of Congress, Juan Orlando Hernandez. Lobo told Romer that to do something as significant as he proposed, to create a zone that would replace Honduran laws with those of a wealthier nation, they'd need to amend the Constitution. So here's where the drug lord starts getting involved with all of this. It says Romer and the oversight board he helped set up were sidelined, and the Honduran Supreme Court initially rejected the constitutional amendment. But Congress, led by Hernandez, dismissed the 4 opposing judges in what some critics called a technical coup. So the dude came in and just started dismissing judges. Does that sound familiar? Possibly a large Cheeto Puff currently sitting in the White House who's doing the exact same thing. Do with that what you will. Since Hernandez, who succeeded Lobo as president of Honduras, continued to have a career marred by corruption and was recently sentenced to 45 years in a United States federal prison for drug trafficking. In 2013, Honduras amended its constitution to allow for the creation of autonomous zones following China and the United Arab Emirates. So now we have this connection here of, okay, we have the techno bros of Silicon Valley, who obviously are at least we don't exactly know, but they're at least one level above the Trump and his administration. They're the ones calling the shots, and they're the ones that are also connected to the Cuban cocaine drug, or not Cuban, but the Honduran cocaine drug lord here, who helped do a coup in Honduras to kick out judges and to amend the constitution unconstitutionally of Honduras to allow those same technical bros to come in and build their city. We following along? It just keeps on rolling. Now, in 2014, as required by the amendment, Juan Orlando Hernandez appointed a group to oversee the Zeds. Early members included a granddaughter of the final Austrian emperor and a band of Republicans from the United States that included the former Reagan speechwriter Mark Klugman. I'm sure some of you guys recognize that name. The anti-tax activist Grover Norquist, the former Reagan aide Faith Whittlesey, the libertarian economist Mark Skousen, I'm sure some of you guys know that name too, and Ronald Reagan's son Michael Reagan. Some pretty interesting people involved with that. So they're involved with the whole Honduras thing as well. It says Prospera has now incorporated 222 businesses into the Zed, including an outsourced staffing agency and scores of experimental medical centers. MiniCircle, founded by 2 young biohackers, offers a product that say they might cure Alzheimer's and suppress all tumors. Symbiont Labs manufacture implants that turn people into self-sovereign cyborgs. Remember, they're not just building these things in Honduras, they're building these things across the world. I think there's roughly 32 of these things that are being built around the world right now. It says the Bay Islands Fitness and Transformation Center offers affordable semaglutide injections, and the Global Alliance for Regenerative Medicine provides stem cell treatments. While the journalist was visiting, a pop-up city called Vitalia used a dome it has erected on Prospera's grounds to host events for biotech innovators who want to make death optional. Everything about this city is dangerous. says, but it is also true that the Z law, it's talking about acquiring land, and this is pretty important. It says, but it is also true that the Z law allows the Honduran government to compel landowners to sell to a zone, so long as they are paid fair market value for the property. This should be hitting close to home as we've been watching multiple large groups buying and purchasing a ton of land in the United States, going and buying whole neighborhoods, whole cul-de-sacs, and whatnot. And we've been seeing them go in and do just that. And so basically what this thing is doing, and according to Honduran law, for the Z, if anybody from the Z group, that city, goes and offers to purchase a bit of land, Honduran law is basically making it that you're required to give it over to them if they want it. From my understanding, obviously they wrote it in such a, dance around non-specific way, but they can definitely manipulate it to fit that way. So pretty interesting that there's a connection now with the Techno Bros. So when you think of Trump, who's declaring war on all the narco-terrorists and blowing them out of the water, or alleged narco-terrorists blowing them out of the water. Again, we have received zero proof about that. And he's saying, drug trafficking is ending, but then he's turning around and literally pardoning a dude who has helped import 400 tons of cocaine into the United States. Somebody did the math. That's about 32 large yellow school buses filled with cocaine that has been imported into the United States because of this guy. But he just pardoned him. Probably because the Silicon Valley bros asked him to. And Trump, because he's a puppet and part of the plan and not this anti-globalist fighter like most people are telling you, he must do what he's told by his higher ups. And it seems that's exactly what he did. Keeps going. Speaking of Roger Stone, if you guys remember when we talked about this, we showed that Roger Stone was lying through his teeth about what was going on with Hernandez, saying that he was innocent and it was all just a political hit job by the leftists. It seems that he's got a duck in the race here as well. It says Roger Stone wants regime change in Honduras to support a techno-colonist crypto city. This was March 6th of this year. It says, I like how they started it out because it's dead on. Right-wing freak show Roger Stone has never met an idiotic idea that he wasn't willing to run with. If anybody knows Roger Stone, you know that that's one of the truest statements that's ever been written about him. It says it makes sense then that Stone is now encouraging the Trump administration to pardon the former president of Honduras, a convicted drug trafficker, to use him in an effort to defend an experimental libertarian enclave that is backed by tech billionaires. The enclave, of course, is Prospera. So Prospera was made possible by a special regulatory setup dubbed a Special Economic Zone, or Z, that was established in the country in 2013 in the wake of a U.S.-backed coup. And we just went over the fact that that is indeed true. And I'm a poet and I don't know it. It says, in recent years, the government of Honduras has cracked down on the project. In 2022, its Congress repealed the law that allows Zeds to flourish in the country, which would have thrown Prospera's very existence into question. This turn of events led Prospera's corporate backers to sue the entire country for over $10 billion. If successful, the litigation would decimate the nation's finances. So here's where things start like, what is going on here? So now that Hernandez got ousted, the guy who came in brought in some people that were trying to take down this Z. They were trying to remove these laws that they could do. And so they started removing some that were affecting the investors of the city, which is not allowing them to advance further than what they want to do. And so what happened is the people of Prospera, the venture capitalists and the investors, they all got together and they decided that they're going to sue the World Bank group that is connected to the Honduras government. And they're suing them for so much money that if they actually win the case, it would sink Honduras altogether. And so they're putting them in between a rock and a hard place. Do we let the economic zone continue to do what they're doing and just start taking over the Honduras region? Or do we go forward with this lawsuit and allow them to financially sink an entire country to do it? Remember, this is the group that said they're going to go in and help make Honduras prosper and pull people out of poverty. But it's the exact opposite. They're either going to sink the people with the city, or they're going to sink the entire country because they won't let them do it. Now, it says Stone seems to think that the country would really benefit from another brush with regime change. In a recently published blog, Stone and conservative writer Shane Trejo suggest that Trump should pardon the former president of Honduras, Juan Orlando Hernandez, who was convicted of drug trafficking last year and is currently serving time in a U.S. prison. If you guys don't know, he was officially pardoned, and he is now out of prison, walking the streets as a free man because of Trump. So the dude who imported 400 tons of cocaine into the country, he's now free as of this recording or this live stream, whatever. And Stone here, who was the one who was caught lying through his teeth about the whole thing, basically he's one of the guys that had a whisper in Trump's ear as well that he needs to go ahead and pardon Hernandez as well. This is the blog. This was posted January 24th, 2025. This is Roger Stone and Shane Trejo. This is how the President Trump can crush socialism and save a freedom city. Freedom City is just the right-wing alternative name for the smart city that the globalists brought forth. Same thing, different name. It's just the same thing. In the impoverished nation of Honduras, there are geopolitical developments afoot that have major implications for U.S. policy and the future of freedom throughout the world. So there's Roger Stone and his blog that he put out in regards to that. Now, this is interesting. This is Castro's, the current president of Honduras. Socialist regime is desperate to rob the Honduran people of realizing the potential of their nation as a political wind shift against their style of rule. The shining examples of Nayib Bukele in El Salvador and Javier Milei in Argentina have the people of Central and South America waking up to the lies of the socialists. This was written by Stone and Trejo. It says, it is not the intrepid investors of Prospera who are the enemy of the people, but the regime itself. A well-timed pardon of former President Hernandez by President Trump could be the final death blow to Castro, with national elections set to take place later this year. Castro's regime would be upended and Honduras liberated without firing a single shot or deploying a single troop in what would be a massive strategic victory for the U.S. interests in the region. So that's all it's about. That's all he cares about. It's about the U.S. Interests in another country. So what we need to do is we need to go in and interfere again. We need to start doing another U.S.-backed coup in the region in order for us, the investors and the rich elites, to continue to push forward with the agenda that we want to do, putting our thumb on another poverty-stricken country. And as we know, we also talked about this as well, Trump, along with the pardon, sent out a global from the biggest megaphone stage in the world, said everybody needs to go and vote and back Tito Esfura. Obviously, Tito Esfura, we talked about him. He's connected to the National Party, the same people involved with embezzling money and trafficking drugs with Orlando Hernandez, who was doing the same thing. But he's also got a major connection, even though he's of Palestinian descent or Arab descent, he's got a major connection to Israel as well, which may play a factor with something we'll talk about later. We'll talk about that as well. But basically, Tito seems to be the same type of play that Javier Milei is. He's a plant. He's a stooge. He's an actor to be emplaced who's going to control and move not only his country, but that region that he's connected to a certain in a certain direction. And so when they mention Nayib Bukele and Javier Milei, that's why they're mentioning them. This is the shining examples of Bukele and Milei that Stone and Trejo reference are not known for their economic successes. It brings up in Argentina, Milei's chainsaw cuts to the government have led to the spiraling economy and rising rates of poverty and homelessness. We've covered that a few times in the past, where Argentina was already in a bad place. Milei came in, put it in an even worse place economically. And then the United States, Scott Bessent came in and said that we're going to give the country $20 billion. So you, people watching, are going to give your money to the country of Argentina, that's going to back also investments of elites that are connected to Scott Bessent. Scott Bessent is the Secretary of Treasury. He's also George Soros's boy, and he helped collapse the British pound during Black Wednesday. Him and George Soros did just that. So keep that in mind. So there's Roger Stone involved with all of this as well. We also have this that came out. This was December 2nd. So today it says, read former Honduras president's letter to Trump. New York Times has obtained the 4-page letter that former President Juan Orlando Hernandez of Honduras sent Trump. A White House official said Mr. Trump had not seen the letter before he announced his plans to pardon Mr. Hernandez. On Monday, Mr. Trump pardoned Mr. Hernandez, and read the letter here. This is the letter that Hernandez wrote to Trump, and it was hand-delivered by Roger Stone. Interesting. Very, very interesting. So getting a little bit more information on all this, because I think it's good to have a full picture. It says crypto bros are trying to bankrupt Honduras for scuttling their private cities. This was February 6th of this year. It says in 2009, following a military coup in Honduras, that's the very one that the United States was involved in, the crypto bros got what they were looking for, a deeply corrupt government involved in drug trafficking and willing to hand over chunks of national territory to the highest bidders in the name of attracting foreign investment. It says in the early morning of December 12th, 2012, the Honduran National Congress, then presided over by future right-wing President Juan Orlando Hernandez, staged what he called a technical coup against the country's Supreme Court of Justice by dismissing 4 magistrates from the Constitutional Chamber. The reason? One ruling that found regulations to create special development regions, or REDs, an initiative that would allow for the creation of the private cities on Honduras territory, to be unconstitutional. Legislative decree number 283-2012 promoted by then President Porfirio Pepe Lobo Sosa to create the special administrative areas that would essentially be governed by private companies. Lobo took power following highly controversial elections just months after the military coup that ousted the democratically elected progressive President Manuel Zelaya in June 2009 with the blessing of the U.S. and Canada. Canada's involved with this as too. So that was why I wanted to bring that up, because now we know that Canada's involved with all this. Now, what's this thing that might bankrupt the country? Honduras is now facing a $10.8 billion U.S. claim before the World Bank's International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes. It says from the Prospera Group, under the terms of the free trade agreement between Central America, the Dominican Republic, and the United States. Honduras Prospera Inc., St. John's Bay Development Company, the Prospera Arbitration Center, LLC, all incorporated in the United States, form part of the Prospera Group. So it's really the United States that's trying to bankrupt Honduras if they don't do what the Techno Bros want. It says after leading the National Congress, Juan Orlando Hernandez eventually became president of Honduras, a position he held for 2 consecutive terms despite prohibition of re-election in the Honduran constitution. So basically, he kind of did what Putin did. He went in and said, well, we're just going to get rid of this stuff and eliminate limits, and I'm just going to be president for the foreseeable future. So he came in and just annihilated the Constitution of Honduras, similar to what Trump has done in the United States. He's just basically dropped trow and dropped deuce on the United States Constitution, as well as all the other presidents have, because it's just a piece of paper now. Even the District Attorney's Office of the Southern District of New York, SDNY, pointed out that the Hernandez committed fraud in the 2013 and 2017 electoral processes. On June 6, former President Juan Orlando Hernandez, now 56, was sentenced to the SDNY to 45 years in prison and 5 years of supervised release following a guilty verdict for narcotics and importation of firearms offenses, which we know that just got pardoned, and he is now a free man.